evening. I'm sure I'm mic'd up here. Welcome to the Monday, January 14th, Kettle Hills Board of Commissioners meeting. Thank you all for attending. We'll call this meeting to order and start, please, with rising for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And before we head into our moment of silence, just a couple of employees to keep in your thoughts. Over the holiday break, one of our officers, Rodney Rawls, grandmother passed away. And just recently, Donna Elliott, another employee, her husband Mike had a heart attack recently. Thanks to Donna's quick action along with Deer Central and 911, and speaking of Rodney Ross, his assistance too, Mike is recovering well. Another surgery is scheduled, but we'll keep the family in our thoughts and prayers moving forward. And with that, I would ask you for you to please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, next up on our agenda is the agenda approval.
If I could, I would like to bring my agenda items up prior to the public hearing if possible. Two reasons, both agenda items will affect, one is about the public hearing, and it's a minor item, and then the other will come up on the consent agenda. So I figured perhaps just tackle them both now.
Okay.
And if you guys agree, the motion would be in order to change that agenda.
Is there a motion to change the agenda with the town attorney's agenda going prior to the public hearing?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we'll move to the town attorney's agenda.
So the first item I'm going to talk about is just the public hearing tonight. And the public hearing I'm referring to is Mr. Goodrich's application to amend Chapter 153.002 definitions to add zero lot line development within the Ocean Impact Residential Zone. It's a very, very minor item. What had occurred is, and I just want to put it out there in case I've talked with the town manager and the planning staff about this, in case there was any form of confusion. So when this item came up through the planning board at that particular meeting, zero lot line development, as you're seeing on the agenda tonight, that was the original language posed by Mr. Goodrich. During that meeting, it was recommended by the planning board that instead of using the terminology zero lot line development, perhaps cluster homes would be more, it's a more general zoning term that's used, you know, in the world of zoning. So not specific to us, just made more sense. So the applicant did accept that language. However, so that is what you will be reading tonight. You will be reading the words cluster homes as opposed to zero lot line development. The reason we bring that up, it does perhaps cause a little bit of confusion because you're seeing it streamlined in front of you using the old language. The reason being, though, the best way to cancel out the confusion is to keep it the same, and all of the package material, all of the materials that were available for the public to review, sort of explained why the amendment or the application morphed the way it did. So I just wanted to say that I personally, and obviously from a legal perspective, see no issue with moving forward with the public hearing based on the publication language.
Just as an aside on that issue, I saw two different items on social media where people thought that meant that there was no setback. You know, they were picturing the building right at the edge of the property, so there was some confusion.
And again, and in the opinion that I wrote, the two parties concerned there would be the applicant, causing harm to the applicant by moving forward, and the other would be to the public. And if they're following the issue, if they're clicking, you know, on the package materials that are published, it would clearly track. So, and I would assume, hopefully, that if they were concerned with that meaning no setback, they would be appearing tonight to present any concerns. But I do think we're okay to move forward with that.
Okay.
All right, the other item, we can discuss this now or later, it is a consent agenda item. You guys, but I suppose it's okay to go ahead and discuss now. So this was the revival of the motion issue that we talked about. This was Mr. Joe Lamb's application. It was in regards to a text amendment. So at the meeting on that, we were without a full board. And if you remember correctly, the way things went, we did hold a vote, and at that vote, there was a deadlock. And the absence of Commissioner Rubottom resulted in that, obviously. So after that, Commissioner Gray made a motion to, we're going to say reconsider, and then that was passed unanimously by the board. And the idea being, when we get a full board and we achieve a full board, then let's revisit this particular issue. A town citizen, Mr. Michael Midget, however, did present a question to me after the hearing, which I have attached to my letter here. And the question was essentially, okay, was that following Robert's Rules of Order? Is the board now entitled to reconsider? Was the motion made by Mr. Gray valid? There's a lot of different ways to couch it. And in my research, and then I'm just going to read verbatim here, in reviewing this matter, it is my opinion that the motion to confer consideration made by Commissioner Gray is a valid motion, and that the board is entitled to reconsider the aforesaid text amendment. This opinion is based on the fact that I can find no controlling jurisprudence applicable to the facts of this situation. While it is generally true that a motion to defer consideration of an issue that has been voted upon is to be made only by a board member who casted a prevailing vote, my research only turned up scenarios that involved a much larger deadlocked board, with that deadlock not being the result of a recent resignation by a former member of the board. Adding to that, there did seem to be a consensus amongst the board that it was more appropriate to confer consideration until a full board was achieved, and that's based largely in part on the fact that when that motion came back to reconsider or to table by Commissioner Gray, there was unanimous affirmation by the board. So, given the foregoing, I do believe it's feasible that any one of you could have made the motion, and ultimately the question is, was it, since Commissioner Gray was technically not the prevailing vote, since it died, in general it would die on the floor with a deadlock, was he allowed to make that motion? And again, I feel as though you guys had consensus, any of you could have made that motion, and as such, I believe that you would be entitled to reconsider the text amendment. And if that's the case, and you'll see that in the consent agenda, then it would be, and David, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it would be set for public hearing. The motion to revive is made, the motion to revive the issue which is required, as stated in my memo, would be made, and the next hearing, it would be at the next meeting. The public hearing would be at the next meeting. That, yeah, with the full board.
So you're saying that the motion to reconsider would be tonight?
Correct. So if you table a matter to bring it back, you must make a motion to revive. And that's ultimately what would be done tonight if you guys decide to approve the consent agenda as drafted. And that would act to reset the matter of public hearing at the very next meeting.
The main reason why I wanted to bring it up, it has nothing to do with the issue, or has nothing to do with the board, or who voted which way, or anything. It has to do with the fact that I'm concerned that we'd be setting a precedent. In the past, as long as I've been on this board, and in instances on the planning board where we voted on something, once the vote was taken, that was the vote. And the vote that was taken was a 2-2, which means that the motion failed. The same as if it was a 3-2, then the motion would fail. And in my opinion, and thanks to Mr. Midget for bringing this up, and him and I have talked about it, and I agree with him that if you look in the future, if you have a case where there's a 3-2, say I made a motion and it went 3-2, and then later on I come back and say, well, I changed my mind, why don't we just table it? It sounds to me like that would be okay, and that's not okay. So I'm just concerned about setting the precedent. And one or two other more minor items. I don't know if you said it was a much larger boards. I don't know whether the size of the board is relevant or not. I'm not sure. Thank you. And also, you stated that the reason that there was a vacancy was because of recent resignation by a former member of the board. Again, I don't see the relevance there. If somebody's not here, if they're sick or whatever the case may be, and you have 4 people, and it ends up in a 2-2, it shouldn't be, well, it's okay to do it again because it was a resignation, not an illness or an absence of some other kind. And you mentioned the fact that the reconsideration could only be brought up by a member of the prevailing vote.
Motion to defer.
Defer.
Right.
Yeah, motion to defer. And the motion is made, and then there's a 2-2 tie, so the motion fails. So, there's only one person that can bring that up, or 2 people.
2.
Yeah, 2 people. And it has to be prevailing. And prevailing would be the ones that voted against the motion.
Which was Mr. Midget's initial
Okay.
inquiry. That's correct. That was the that was what we were. Well, what I am reporting on here. That you're correct in that statement.
So anyway, I wanted to bring that up, and if you think there's any validity to it, what do we do about it?
Well, it's everything that I considered in doing my research. I mean, you have restated the issue perfectly, but that was also the issue I was looking at. What I'll say is this: as far as the precedent, I think each of these, it's circumstantial in nature, and if the circumstances such as this were to arise again, then I suppose maybe there would be some form of precedent. But at the same time, and when I say that, I'm talking about a 4-member board. Again, we've got this resignation that was somewhat unexpected, and had it been a sickness or something, I don't know if it would have affected my opinion, to be honest with you. But I do see where you're going with it. Now, like I said, I don't think the 3-2 scenario would play in. I think in that particular case, it's dead. I mean, I don't think that it ever, and I'm not saying that it wasn't dead the other day. What I'm saying is I don't think that anybody's going to make a motion, to reconsider and then say, well, we should be entitled to because I wasn't happy with it. In this case, it was more, we have a 5-member board and we only have 4 members. And we're deadlocked on the issue, and it's a shame that we're deadlocked, and perhaps the applicant is entitled to the full board, and let's give them that consideration. So I think the facts would have to be very specific before we were to set a precedent. Now, that's the only thing I'll make a comment on there, because again, I think this is, you could argue on both sides of this one. I do. I think it's one of those scenarios where, you look and you decide whether or not you've got a defensible position for the decision that you're making moving forward in reconsidering this or not. And that ultimately was what my memo was acting to do, was to provide us with a defensible position in the event that you guys did choose to move forward.
Well, I say, I agree with Terry. It's kind of, in retrospect, it was kind of a no-brainer that we should have, before we took the first vote, we should have had a motion to take.
Right.
And that would have been the right thing to do. But legally, I think the fact that came after the vote, and historically, once a vote is taken, it's done. That's been the past.
Right.
That has been precedent.
Right, and every single bit of that is for you guys to take into consideration and to decide. Absolutely. I mean, you've raised valid points. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you for explaining it again.
No, absolutely. And any more questions for me?
Other
Just let me
discussion
know.
on this now?
The only thing that I was gonna say was that we did talk and try to come to some sort of consensus, and I think that's, one of the ways that we determined we could move forward. So that was the reason.
Well, I definitely agree with the table. I'm just talking about the legal aspect of it.
And speaking to the legal, I'm comfortable with the recommendations from our attorney and our guidance. I feel like we almost would need the same guidance if we didn't move forward as we said we were going to move forward, because then we've taken a vote saying we're gonna revisit it, and if we changed directions and didn't revisit, I feel like we're leaving ourselves even more vulnerable. I didn't ask you to deliberate on that potential consequence, but I think that would be a potential consequence if we didn't, so,
No, I agree. I agree with that as well. And like I said, if this were more straightforward, then again, the scenario where we did have a full board, where there was a 3-2 vote, and then all of a sudden, one of the twos, if you will, makes a motion which gets passed to defer consideration. I think it's a little different. I do feel like these facts, they warrant, again, a defensible position to move forward and reconsider if indeed that's your pleasure.
As long as we're all happy with that. Happy with the explanation, I just wanted it explained so I could understand a little better.
absolutely.
That attorney, right?
That's what I did.
I tried it, didn't work for me.
Great. Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Casey.
Casey, then we will move on to our next agenda item, which are our 2 public hearings, and I will turn that over to you as the town attorney to conduct the hearings, please.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor. And there will be 2 public hearings conducted this evening by the Kildover Hills Board of Commissioners. And the following rules of procedure will apply to these hearings. A public notice of each hearing was published in the newspaper and posted on the town bulletin boards in accordance with statutory requirements for the subject matter. A copy of the public notice has been filed with the town clerk for entry into the official record of the hearing. The town clerk will record all oral comments in a concise and brief manner. Written statement shall be recorded in a similar manner and made part of the record of the hearing and shall be submitted in full to the town clerk. If speaking, please limit your comments to matters relevant to the issue and to a period of time of 3 minutes. Unless, however, you're speaking on behalf of the group, at which point there will be a 5-minute exception made. Please, all speakers come to the microphone so that your statement may be taped. Then there shall be no debates regarding these applications. And when you step up, also, please identify yourself and your address. So the first public hearing will come to order, and this hearing is called for the purpose of the Kildover Hills Board of Commissioners to consider the following. Eddie Goodrich, amend chapter 153.002 definitions to add 0 lot line development. Amend chapter 153.096L ocean impact residential zone permitted uses, and chapter 153.176FF commercial zone permitted uses to add 0 lot line development as a permitted use in each section, and add a new section, chapter 153.291 0 lot line developments, to create associated regulations. The following individuals have indicated a desire to speak. I'm told there's nobody that has signed up, so I will ask the audience if anybody intends on saying, anybody would like to speak.
I was.
Jones, 1508 Captain's Lane. I think just to make that a little bit clear, when you say 0 lot line, I don't think everybody thinks it is the lots adjacent, and it's not. It's just the lots within that parcel. So I just think it makes it a little bit confusing, I think, when you call it 0 lot lines, and maybe that's why the planning board determined to be a cluster home instead. So
To recommend a different language, you're a proponent of that.
I think that's probably partly why, because it is real confusing when you say 0 lot line. Everybody thinks it's going to be the lots to the north and the south if you're on the ocean. So just want to make that clarification.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else? The applicant?
Yes.
There he is. The applicant's up here for any questions, guys, that you may have.
So you're gonna change the word 0 lot line to cluster housing, but the definition is still the same?
That's, I'll defer to Meredith on that, but
The
that's
same
my
route.
understanding.
The amendment that we brought to the last meeting that you and I discussed at length, that the planning board made the recommendation, which was to change the 0 lot line development to cluster homes for clarification and a common planning practice, is what's being presented to the board in this public hearing.
That makes total sense, I understand why.
You okay with it, I guess?
Pardon me?
Are you okay with it, I guess? You're okay?
Yes. Well, as long as it means, you can transfer the land under the building.
Yes.
Okay. That's the whole idea. And cluster housing just sounds better, that's all.
It's easier for the public to understand.
That's
Anyone have any questions? on this? Discussion? Okay.
I like the idea that we've received concern recently and over the years of kind of the size of these large homes on the ocean front. I like the fact that this kind of may give the business community another option for developing those oceanfront lots. So it's nice to see some action being taken, maybe to, I won't call it a problem, but just have more options available for developers in our oceanfront zone.
Yeah. And Eddie, I appreciate the work that you've put into bringing this to us. So it's been months in the making, so thank you. Well, a motion would be in order if the board is so inclined.
Should the motion read as presented on the front page in this paperwork, or should we substitute cluster homes or cluster housing for zero lot line development? A little, how exactly should we?
I think your consistency statement actually says cluster homes, parentheses, zero lot line development to make it joint.
In there.
Do you need a copy of that?
Oh, thank you. In that case, then I'll make a motion, proposed amendment to zone 153.002 definitions, 153.096L ocean impact residential zone permitted uses, zone 153.176FF commercial zone permitted uses, and add 153.291 cluster homes, zero lot line developments, add definition of cluster homes, and cluster homes as a permitted use and create associated regulations is consistent with all the comprehensive plans and their official adopted plans of the town of Kildover Hills that are applicable. The amendment is reasonable and in the public interest because it provides an alternative for large single-family structures on the oceanfront and commercial use.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you.
So the second public hearing will please come to order, and this hearing is called for the purpose of the Kildover Hills Board of Commissioners to consider request made by Mr. Randy Appleton, request for removal of property at 2024 North Virginia Dare Trail from the Municipal Service District. And I know Mr. Appleton is here and probably would like to get up and speak. It's happened before, perhaps let the applicant speak, so that way he can address any concerns or that might come up afterwards, so.
Absolutely welcome.
I'm Randy Appleton. I live at 2024 North Virginia Air Trail. And I have filed this request to remove my property from the Municipal Service District or the beach tax because I'm kind of caught betwixt and between in this situation. My house is on the west side of the beach road, and I've got a 29-foot strip that runs over to the ocean. It's a condemned piece of property, and I'm really where the Claydon used to be. And I spoke with Mr. Barnell's predecessor about this when you guys first passed the beach tax to see if I could remove the parcel that's on the ocean away from the parcel that's at my house or that has my house on it. And I was told if that was done, then the parcel where my house is would be a non-conforming parcel and I would not be able to convey it in the future. I'm in favor of the beach tax and I love the fact that you guys passed it. I'm here now because it's my understanding that if you grant my request, I will be out of the tax district next year. And so I will have paid the beach tax for the first 5 years. And as I read the minutes from your past meetings, those were projected to be the most expensive cycles as far as costs were associated with beach erosion and the beach tax. As I looked at the paperwork, there were two purposes for the beach tax. One was to protect property. And we've done that. I've given you guys a bunch of documents that show what we've done to stabilize the vacant lot ahead of us. And we're not at any higher risk for beach or for damage to our properties than we are from any other houses on the west side of the beach road. The next question is erosion control. We've got a partial lot that goes out. And as I looked at what you guys did when the beach tax first came into effect, there was an area of tapered lots at one end of the beach district. And there were a lot of lots that were let out of the district, either by court order or by your agreement. And in the ordinance that passed, letting those parcels out in the taper, one of the justifications was that those property owners did not receive a full load of the sand or the equipment or enjoyment that the other parcels had that were in the middle of the district. I would submit to you that our 29-foot strip of land got less sand than somebody that has the normal 55 to 60-foot lot. And so I'm here kind of asking you to compromise with me on the beach tax. We've done what we can to protect our property by building up the dune ahead of us on our own. We got a smaller load of sand than the other people that live on the beach and are paying the beach tax. And I'm just asking as a matter of equity that we be let out of the district.
Questions? Casey, I'm assuming there was no one that signed up from the public to speak. Okay. Questions from the board?
The only thing I was looking at is the adjacent properties to that. They seem to be about the same size. Do we have any information on that? And would it really even, I mean, unless it's somebody's looked at the ownership of it, would it even matter? But it looked like there were other areas that were about the same size as that lot.
Cameron, can you put that last one back up, the photograph? Oh, I see what you're talking
See what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It looks like there's some other lots that are about the same size as that.
That is the site of the old Claydon Hotel.
So they're all 50.
So the hotel sat on the ocean front, the pool and the office sat on the west side.
Right.
And when the owner of the Claydon tore it down, he subdivided it, and he subdivided it specifically so that all the lots, east and west side, are connected. And they are one lot, and they can't be separated because they don't meet minimum lot standards.
Gotcha.
So they are oceanfront lots that are intersected by NC 12.
Okay.
Which is what makes them a little different.
They were all part of the same subdivision. That's exactly right.
And the subdivision can't, it's specific on the plat that the lots can't be divided, nor can the ocean lots be built upon. They don't meet minimum size requirements. The west side doesn't meet a minimum size requirement for a subdivision either. So they are connected, and like I said, they're oceanfront transected by NC 12.
So the four lots to the north and the two to the south are basically the same size. They're not buildable, right?
There's 6 lots, and the eastern side do not meet minimum standards for either the town or CAMA to be independent buildable lots. No, sir.
So, wouldn't be buildable, never mind.
That was the only thing I had mentioned. I was curious as to that.
Mr. Appleton, you had mentioned and I'm just trying to understand your perspective here. Your comment was that you feel that you had a smaller load of sand in that area. Can you explain that rationale again
Just
for me?
because the lot's only 29 feet wide, not because of the depth, but because the lot is more narrow, it's not a buildable lot as opposed to the other lots that are in the district. If I had my house on that side, I wouldn't be here. And if I didn't have the condemned lot on the other side, I wouldn't have been taxed. And so that's why I'm here, and that's why I've waited so long to come here.
Right.
I don't understand that.
But it's not a condemned lot.
Yes, it is.
No, it is,
It is condemned.
believe me.
You can't build on that lot.
But he couldn't build on his current lot without that lot.
Without that lot.
But the subdivision specifically combines the 2 lots, so neither are
Separate.
condemnable lots. They're not separate, they're one. So they're not condemnable entities independently.
And I know
If
when we
you condemned
originally
it, you'd
looked
have to
at,
condemn both.
right, And when we originally looked at this, these are anomalies as far as what's on the rest of the entire beach. I do get that. But it's the way it was designed years ago and. Other comments or questions? Is the board prepared to make a motion or take action?
I make a motion that we deny the request for the removal of property at 2024 North Virginia Dare Trail from the Municipal Services District.
There's a motion, is there a second? There's a motion and a second, any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, we will move on then on our agenda. The next item is the first time set aside this evening for public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience to address the board on any topic of their choosing. We do ask if you're speaking at public comment that when called upon you would approach the podium and identify yourself please by name and address. We also ask that if you're speaking as an individual, if you would try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you're speaking on behalf of a group, if you would please try to keep those comments to 5 minutes. We did have a sign-up sheet. We'll start with the sign-up sheet and then we'll move to anyone in the floor who wishes to speak. And welcome Colleen Almany, who signed up to speak. Welcome.
Good evening, Colleen Almany, 900 9th Avenue. I wanted to give everybody an update on what's happening with our Neighborhood Watch group that has been started for a few months now. We are up to 115 Facebook members with a lot of engagement, so that's exciting. And we've got 65 people on our email list. Those are people who have directly requested to receive information either via email or at an event that we've hosted and been a part of. So I'm really excited about that. We have a meeting this Thursday at 6:30 in this room. It's open to the public. If anybody would like to join us, we have an amazing guest speaker, Dana Harris. And we're going to be talking about getting our canvassing activities scheduled, and we have a couple of other ideas that we want to kind of poll our group about what kind of information they want to get during our meeting. So if anybody would like to come, please do. Since you're going to be talking about the budget this evening, I just wanted to put a little bug in your ear that since we're a new group and last year we worked with a zero budget, we're going to be asking for just a little bit of money. Some things that we'd like to consider are t-shirts for our group so that we're out in the community. We're doing some good PR work for the town as well as letting people know that we're not selling Girl Scout cookies. I'd like to have some professional door hangers made with information about our group and information about our town, so we're not just, slipping pieces of copy paper, inside people's knobs and contributing to our litter situation. Candy for the Halloween parade that we'll be a part of and different events like that. And possibly bumper stickers that we could hand out during events just to kind of, again, get our group out in the public. And as we have cars parked in driveways, hopefully if they see bumper stickers that say they're part of the Neighborhood Watch group, that they might be less inclined to check those doorknobs and see if there's any free goodies inside. And that was it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Colleen.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak at this public comment time? Okay. Response to public comment. Colleen, do you guys have an amount yet? Has your committee worked on that?
We tossed around a couple ideas.
Okay. Because we could use that information when we're working on it. So.
We would like to ask for 5,000, and that would obviously carry over as we move forward. That could also take into account road signs as we grow bigger and, have a little bit more of a national brand awareness with the program.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you for all the work you're doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? And we will move on to introductions and presentations. And tonight, we have the presentation of the comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year 17-18, and Award of Excellence in Financial Reporting. I'd like to welcome Teresa Osborne from our CPA firm, the firm we contract with, Dowdy and Osborne, to present our audit for the 17-18 year. Welcome.
Good evening. Good to be with y'all tonight. I am here this evening to present the results of the Town of Caledonia Hills Annual Independent Audit for the June 30th, 2018 fiscal year. The town has received an unmodified opinion on its financial statements, the best opinion you can receive. It confirms that the financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Additionally, because the town spent more than $500,000 in state grant funds last year, you also have had what is referred to as a single audit, and we have issued a report confirming your compliance with those state grant programs. The town goes above and beyond the basic financial statement reporting requirements by preparing a comprehensive annual financial report, or CAFR, which provides additional statistical and historical financial information. The report is a very thick report, so therefore I'm not going to go through the whole report with you tonight. I am just going to hit a couple of highlights. The general fund, which is the largest fund comprising most governmental functions except for those reported in the water fund, the town ended the year with an unassigned fund balance of $9,642,000. This was a decrease of about $170,000 from the prior year. One of the ways that we measure the healthiness of the fund balance is we compare that to our annual expenditures. And the unassigned fund balance at June of 18 represents 52% of the current year general fund expenses, compared to 65% in the prior year. And the reason the percentage went down some is because the total of expenditures went up. The town has a minimum fund balance policy which instructs management to strive to maintain an unassigned fund balance of 35% of budgeted expenditures, and your fund balance exceeds this minimum. And I would say overall that the general fund ended the year with a strong fund balance and has a strong financial position. The water fund accounts for the town's water operations. Operating revenues increased by just under $200,000. However, those increased revenues were offset by increased operating expenses of just about the same amount, resulting in operating income of $373,000, and that is comparable to the prior year. Ideally, you want your operating revenues to cover your operating expenses plus depreciation at a minimum, and the town has accomplished that. The Capital Reserve Fund ended the year with $3,136,000, a large portion of that which is reserved for beach nourishment. So that pretty much sums up the three major funds. Moving away from the individual funds, I just want to focus on one thing. The town was required to implement what is referred to as GASB Statement 75. That's the Governmental Accounting Standards Boards that set standards for governmental accounting. That particular standard affected how the town reports their liability for retiree health insurance. Just to give you a little background, we originally started reporting a liability for retiree health insurance about 8 years ago. When we started, there had to be some mechanism for reporting the past cost accrued for those employees that were already employed when we implemented that standard 8 years ago. And at that point, GASB allowed us to amortize what we refer to as that past service cost. They allowed us to amortize that over a 30-year period. Well, then they came in with GASB 75 for the fiscal year 18, and they had kind of been preparing us for this, but they said, no more amortizing over 30 years. We're going to make you recognize the full liability. So we still had like 22 years to go had we amortized it. But because of this new standard, we had to recognize the liability all at one time. And that caused what is called a prior period adjustment in your financial statements, and you'll see that in the notes to the financial statements. And you actually had to increase your beginning liability for about $4.2 million. Moving forward, the town will recognize an actuarially determined expense for this benefit, offset by the payments each year for that benefit. Just a reminder that this is only a financial reporting standard. There is no requirement to fund that liability at this point. There are ways that you can fund the liability, and I think the finance department will probably be talking to you about that in more detail as you move forward. But that money has to be set aside in what's called a trust fund that the town can't get to except for retiree health insurance benefits. But again, I think that staff will be coming forward just with you for some information on that. I'm just going to end tonight by confirming the town's strong financial position as well as letting you know of the high caliber work being done by your finance department. I want to express my thanks to Beverly and the entire finance department for their work in producing this audit report, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with you. Thank you very much, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Teresa.
Thank you, Teresa.
Questions for Teresa?
Well, been a long time since, we've
It has been.
talked to you up here. and
Nice to see you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think it goes well to say what a great job the town manager and the finance department did. To get an award like this is pretty good. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
And speaking of the award, Beverly Kissinger is going to come forward and present the Certificate of Achievement.
And thank you, Teresa, for all your help. And I am very pleased and proud to report that the Government Finance Officers Association has awarded a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting to the town of Kettle Hills for its prior year financial CAFR report. Again, this is kind of a big deal for finance departments because it is a prestigious national award that recognizes conformance at the highest standards for preparation of state and local government financial reports. In order to be awarded a certificate of achievement, the government unit has to publish an easily readable and efficiently organized CAFR whose contents conform to program standards. It must satisfy both generally accepted accounting principles and other requirements. The certificate is valid for a period of 1 year only. We have received the certificate for the past 30 years.
Wow.
So, anyway, past 30 consecutive years, I should say, and we also believe that the current report that you receive will conform to those program standards. And we have recently submitted it to the GFOA. I want to express my gratitude and my appreciation to the Finance Department. These are the people that put this book together. They do a lot of extra work in addition to their daily work, and I am very thankful that we have such an awesome staff.
Beverly, do you mind if I put you on the spot? I know the staff's here, they're spread out, but to ask them to stand and be recognized, because it is exceptional work that you all do.
Yeah, I will definitely. See Ron Farley. Charlene Allen. Jerry Woods.
And you
You're
guys
here.
And you, Beverly.
Thank you, and I also want to thank you, Mayor and Board of Commissioners, for your continued support as well.
Wonderful.
You actually have a copy of the certificate in your book. I think it's like page Roman numeral 11, and then we have so many plaques that we condensed it down to one, and we get a button. But we were actually talking today, we're gonna we'll talk about it then. About all our old ones, how to revive them.
And I would like to request, if it's not too much work, to have a media release done, especially that this is the 30th consecutive year. I think it'd be a great opportunity to do a specific story on this with maybe a picture of the finance staff. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. We will move on then to new business. We have some exciting new business under item number 1. And this is the oath of office to welcome our newest Board of Commissioners, Skip Jones. So I'll turn it over to Skip, if you would come forward. And Kay, are you holding the Bible? Or wonderful, welcome. His wife Kay. And Michael is going to do the swearing in.
History in her eyes.
Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I
I, Nelson Jones Jr.,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of the State of North Carolina,
of the State of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
discharge
discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as Commissioner of the Town of Killable Hills,
as Commissioner of the Town of Killable Hills,
according to the best of my skill and ability,
according to the best of my skill and ability,
according to the law,
according to the law,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Tonight?
Where are you
So, you can walk in the chair.
Yeah, we all got the best chairs.
I've been through that
That's
before, the
great.
planning board.
He's used to these chairs. Okay. We are going to actually take a little recess and just take a few minutes to enjoy some refreshments and welcome, skip aboard, let them get settled, and then we'll pick up with our agenda. So we'll take a motion just to take a little recess.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. All right, welcome back. We will move on now to new business, item number 2. This is a site plan review. Boundary Street Townhomes at 1206 West Boundary Street in the light industrial 2 zone. This is a proposed 11,875 square foot, 7-unit multifamily dwelling with 20 parking spaces and associated site improvements. This site plan was approved by the planning board back at their December 18th meeting. At the time, there were a few conditions, and it's my understanding those have been addressed since. So, open the floor for discussion by the board, and we have representatives here.
Yes, ma'am.
Welcome, gentlemen. We have questions, and open the floor for discussion. Questions or comments from the board members?
Being on the planning board, I'm a little familiar with this already, and I'm excited the direction this is going as far as the cluster homes, because we have had a lot of comments from the residents about the large homes, and, and I think this is a good direction for the town to go into. I think Eddie's done a good job, and once again, I did want to make that clarification earlier about it's not a zero property line. It's setbacks as far as the side, the adjacent property is just within that property. And I think that's as far as being able to fit them on the property, and I just think it's a great direction for the town to go into, so.
For the Boundary Street property, I was just happy to see us get more inventory of multifamily homes in Killable Hills. We need it. This is a good thing for our town, so I'm excited for it, and ready to see it come about.
Just other than, I went through the staff notes and site plan review and everything here that I thought the staff had done an excellent job and covered all the bases. I'm excited to see it as well. I think from the standpoint, like Commissioner Wimley had said, from family homes or houses or more of an affordable type house is a good thing. So I'm glad to see this come forward.
I would like to reiterate that to planning staff and planning board. It's been very helpful, and we really appreciate it. It was just a pleasure working with everybody, Cameron, Meredith, and everybody.
Thank you. Any other comments?
No, I think it's great.
Okay, I think, yes.
Sorry if I may, I was directing my comments to the wrong parcel. But it does follow into this.
Well, you were on the planning board too, so.
Yeah, I'm familiar with this one as well, and that's another direction that's great for the town. We really need these smaller, more affordable units terribly. I mean, that's the biggest thing going and that we're concerned about in the whole county right now because it's needed so badly. So I'm glad to see somebody's stepping up to the challenge and, you know, developing a property such as this.
Great. Well, I think the board's ready for a motion then.
I would move that we approve, the site plan for the Boundary Street Townhomes, 1206 West Boundary Street, in the light industrial 2 zone, and, as presented.
There's a motion and a second. Any other comments? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great.
Thank you so much.
Certainly, thank you guys. Okay, that takes us then to committee reports. Do you have any committee reports this evening?
A couple of quick announcements to share. The Community Affairs Commission, our next meeting will be in February 28th, 8:30 in the morning in this room, last Thursday of the month. This Wednesday, January 16th at 6 o'clock here in this room, the Kick Butt Subcommittee will have a meeting. Our Kick Butt Subcommittee is focuses on moving, I guess, working to reduce cigarette butt litter, especially on our beaches all throughout town. Both of our meetings are open to the public. Everybody is invited and encouraged to attend. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you.
Don't
Any
have
other
anything.
committee reports? Mr. Gray, we're good? Any committee reports?
No,
Good.
ma'am.
Okay, then we will move on to Commissioner's agenda. Commissioner Gray, anything this evening?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Well, actually, for you, you were involved in a really big event, just Saturday, correct? Or was it Sunday?
So it was Sunday. I participated in the Wounded Warriors parade. It was an escort of Wounded Warriors. They were all Purple Heart recipients. And we escorted them from Kilmarlock all the way to the Virginia line, where they had a different PGR group come in, Patriot Riders group come in, and then they escorted them on to Washington. It's an annual event that happens, and they normally try to get as many people as they would like, or they can get to show respect to the Wounded Warriors. And they host them at a hunt, for hunting up in Currituck County. And a lot of the businesses and individuals show them support by, putting this on. It was a great event, a little bit wet, a little bit cold, but I managed to make the entire ride without stopping and trying to find something, a place to get warm. I rode my motorcycle all the way up there, and it was a good time.
You're a trooper, you're good.
Yeah, it's neat seeing the pictures on Facebook, and I had to go to Virginia today, actually, and there were still the signs out along the road showing their support, so great event.
There was people all along the highway, and just showing support for them. It was fantastic. Very good.
Great. All right, Commissioner Jones, anything this evening?
No, I would just say that, we had a pretty good outpouring of people that wanted to be on the board, and I would just encourage them to maybe get involved with the committees. The CAC committee, which I recently had to resign from, is a great committee, and it's surprising how much that I felt like we got accomplished. I've been a big proponent of the sidewalks on the bypass and the bike path, and it wasn't just through them, but everybody comes together. And it's pretty surprising how much we get accomplished, and Sue Kelly's done a tremendous job heading that committee, and I would just recommend that people get involved. It's a really easy thing. It's not it's not a lot of time. So you do get to meet everybody with the town somewhat, and there's a sense of accomplishment that you can acquire through the committees, and it's a good stepping stone. So I would just recommend that to, all the residents, really.
And if anyone is interested, they can contact, town clerk, assistant town clerk, and get an application, and go on our website and fill out an application to join a committee. That'd be great.
On that, thanks for bringing that up, in the end, we're the final arbitrators on almost all things up here. There's no way we could do what we do without all the committees and subcommittees. It's amazing the amount of work that they do, and we're very thankful to have them.
Mr. Lehman?
Yeah, I'll take a second to kind of echo the thoughts shared. Sue Kelly does a wonderful job chairing the Community Appearance Commission. I feel lucky to be able to work with someone who cares that much. And we would be very, very remiss if we did not acknowledge all the great job that Colleen Almany has done with the Community Watch. I mean, starting from scratch and building it up into something we can really be proud of. And I feel like I owe Colleen a couple of these Saturday walks. I look forward to some more being scheduled soon so we can spread the good word of the Community Watch and listen to our citizens and get more of their input. I do have something I want to share, and I hope everybody got my email about this. Since we're approaching planning for the next budget cycle, I'd like to ask the board if there is interest in kind of asking the planning department to look into the potential of building, well, we're removing the porta potties from our beach accesses, replacing them with small permanent bathrooms. Not being, I guess, too graphic. My family plans trips to the beach. We heavily consider the bathroom facilities before we go, and I think it is a realistic expectation. Other people may feel the same way. And we have some beautiful beach access in Philadelphia Hills with ample parking and easy access, but that sometimes the bathroom part of the scenario could be a deciding factor to even go to Nag Center or Kitty Hawk. I feel like this is something that is worth investigating, and it could be it could improve the quality of life for our citizens and tourists alike. I've shared a lot of items with the board. I don't want to kind of jump into that too deep right now, but I'd like to kind of ask everybody today if there's any consensus, and just asking staff to do a little bit of research and the potential for trying this out and seeing if it's doable, and what maybe some of the next action steps would be to even pursue this. Let's do a little bit of homework.
Comments? Discussion?
Our beach accesses are outlined in our shoreline access plan, and I would like to think that maybe we try to look at, does that need to be updated? Because currently it does say now that, we have these portable or temporary, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, as you and I have discussed before. I think that we need to have that as well. But I would just want to try to make sure that we take that plan along with it, and maybe ask the town manager if they could do that. Look at the plans, see if it needs to be updated, and then try to figure out ways to do it. I support you 100% on.
I definitely think it's worth looking into.
And then I'll comment.
I think we had this discussion before, I'm not sure which committee or whatever it was, but, about having reference at every access. I'm not sure if we have them at every, I don't think we still have them at every access, do we?
No.
So I think that is important. First and primary, I think that's really important, whether it's, Porta John isn't the best looking thing, but it's still functional. And even if we can't do permanent ones, I'm wondering if maybe there's something we can do to dress up the Porta Johns. Even create shade over them, because summertime when it's 95 degrees, those things are like a little oven, so. But I think it is important. I think people do look at the access system. My wife uses a few of them right there in front of the room. Some of them do, some of them don't. I think that's a pretty big concern. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't know if we can do permanent ones, but it's definitely worth looking at.
Well, maybe it's a first step, because I think staff obviously will respond to what we request, but I think trying to make sure our request is tangible enough to give specific guidance, or maybe a start as an inventory of what is it, which accesses don't have any facilities, and then what facilities are at the other accesses. For me, it comes down to, it's not a disagreement with the concept, it's then gonna be a prioritization of money, you know? Do we put the money in street improvements and drainage and that, or do we put it into bathrooms? So I think first, let's do an assessment. I would be curious just what a ballpark figure is if you took a porta-john and made it into a restroom facility. What's a ballpark figure, if that could even, you know, I mean, are we looking in the 50,000 mark, are we looking in the 75, are we looking in the 50? I have no idea, but that would really help me be able to say what's realistic moving forward or not.
Actually, if I may, Mayor, Commissioner Wedling had come in and talked with staff last week, and so we've kind of been doing some things ourselves, just in anticipation of any discussion this evening concerning this. And our Buildings and Grounds Department was able to find some, Mary, help me with what to call it, just permanent.
They are actual buildings.
That you buy the building already constructed.
You buy it off of state contract. The least expensive is $17,500. The most expensive is somewhat over $100,000, and obviously they're different. They're entirely different facilities.
That was a bit much. That's got the butler and everything.
So it just goes to show you, depending on how many people you want to try to accommodate. Some of them have drain fields, some of them are waterless, but they look like an actual bathroom facility, which they are. Now, Ross was quick to point out that it's utilitarian. It's stainless steel sinks, stainless steel counters, stainless steel toilet, all of that. But there are options out there that we are looking into, and I had hoped that the last questions we had would get answered today, which would be time frame for turnaround.
I think we can have that along with an assessment of what we do have out there for the February meeting. And the other thing that just staff and conversation we're talking, that if we are gonna look at maybe just trying it at one or two, if the board would be willing to consider to do that this budget year, so that you'd actually have it up and running in the summer, as opposed to waiting for the budget to begin in June. Because obviously, if we're looking at ordering something, there's, you know, ordering time, even though it is a state contract, we wouldn't have to do bidding, and then that would save some time. But if you wanted to do the trial, and doing all of that, dovetailing an update to the plan, because I think it reminded us how old the plan is when we pulled it out.
I looked through it, but it did take each particular access and lay out a plan for that, so.
But what we could do is go in and update that plan without doing a whole new plan, I think, at this point, for this purpose, and report back to you at the February 20th meeting.
And look at what grant money is available. There may be some grant money through CAMA or other means, you know.
Yeah, I'm on the tourism board, I'm on the grants committee also, and
There you go.
it seems to me to be ripe for a grant.
Yeah, and you could do it where it would, you know, be a phased project maybe.
Well, that's kind of how we've been doing porta potties, is adding some along the way. It's, as the mayor stated, it's all a matter of money, because, you know.
That's right.
Thank you. I think
We'll
that's a
do
good
that.
plan. Everybody good with it? Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else this evening?
No, I'm wondering if at this time is appropriate. Steve, would you be able to tell us, I've had a lot of questions about what's going on up by the Dare Center with the pipes laying there and everything. Could you give us a minute or two update on that, so I can sound like I know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, good evening. The original we call it the Old Town Hall site, had many uses throughout the years. And the NCDOT had a drainage corridor that runs between Meekins Field and the fire station, which was the prime location for the new 400,000 gallon elevated tank close to the existing pumping station. So to make room for the new elevated tank, the drainage is getting shifted from basically dissecting our property out to the 158 right of way. And so it's a 60-inch pipe, and it will go from the EMS building up adjacent to the Mako's property, and then turn north and go up by the ATM, and then it transitions into a twin 42 and a single 42 all the way to 3rd Street to accommodate the new sidewalk.
That's in front of Dare Center. There'll be a sidewalk and a drainage
Yes.
project. And I don't know if it was mentioned before, but if I'm not mistaken, the owners of the Dare Center have pledged $100,000, $125,000 for that project.
Yes.
So we'll have new drainage and walkway there. Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Under Mayor's agenda, there was one item in your packet, which was setting the date for the boards and committee appreciation reception. You all may recall each year we host a reception to thank all of the members of our boards and committees. I didn't know if you brought your calendars to look at a date for that. Looking into probably the end of February, early March.
Is there a particular day of the week that we prefer?
Okay.
We have a meeting on the 11th, any week before that might be good.
I was thinking, March 6th, works for me. I don't want, everybody else has commitments.
I'm open at this point.
Me as well.
March 6th works for me as well. We want to have a backup date just in case that doesn't, that's not important.
Maybe the 13th.
Is the 13th just in case, the 6th? Okay. Does Kay have your calendar?
Got my phone.
Okay.
Things already kind of scheduled, I want to go through them.
Well, this is for, the Board of Commissioner meetings are. This is just for the reception. The past couple of years, we've been hosting it at Captain George's, which if people are comfortable doing that again. It's only a couple hours. It's like 4:30 to 6:30 or 5 to 7, something like that. The one question that has come up in prior years is I think the last 3 years we've done it, we invited all of the committee members and board members. We did not do spouses, but then that did come up. So figured we should discuss it now and just figure out what the board wants to do.
I like the idea of inviting families, kids too. I don't know, it's hard to estimate how many people we're gonna have there, that's tricky. But, I do like the idea of, it's nice to have a spouses and kids and immediate family members there. You can make it a little more festive. It may encroach on the expense a little bit of participation, but it'll make it more special. I think people feel more invited, because some people may have restrictions with not having anyone to watch their children, and that to keep them going, this may, encourage people to participate.
Other comments?
I think it's a good idea.
I'm not sure how Bambus would, I don't know how it works to, I think spouses is one thing, without a doubt, but I think having a reception, an adult reception, I have young children, so I get it, but I think it changes the nature of the event a little bit. But that's It's just my opinion, so. Because my husband is lost in there, yeah. And they were set, yes, but they were at a different table out of the, yeah. We had them in the dining hall, not with our reception though, and I was,
So are you saying just in the interest of simplicity and to keep from being, huge crowd of people, just have the board member and one person? Is that what you're saying?
board member and guest.
Yeah, or spouse or guest, whatever. Spouse or friend, which in my case is the same.
Is that the pleasure of the board?
You good with that?
I think that's a nice idea. I don't have children, so that's not really something I need to worry about. But I have a wife, I can bring her.
Okay. We'll propose, well, first choice would be March sixth, and the second choice is the 13th.
Yes. Thank you.
Great. Just two other announcements. Officially, congratulations on the birth of your third child. You guys, welcome, was it December 21st?
Yes.
Justin, you look great considering
Thanks.
you're a month into it, so. And then also Derek Dale tried to sneak a wedding in on us. Congratulations to you on New Year's Day for getting married, so that's exciting. Congrats. And that's all I have this evening. We'll move on to town manager's agenda.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
We've already covered the town attorney's agenda. We'll move on to the consent agenda.
Yes, ma'am. Consent agenda this evening, the first item, minutes from the December 10th, 2018 meeting, the November 2018 monthly report. Under budget amendments, I had one extra one come in today that I'll speak to. Budget amendment number 14 is to record U.S. Department of Homeland Security firefighter grants for physical fitness equipment in our workout room. The second budget amendment is number 15. This was to record local government commission and funding for the Public Works Complex Master Plan final phase. If you remember, the local government commission met last Tuesday and we did get approval for that final phase. Very excited about that. Number 4 is the annual certification of firefighters. Number 5, as we spoke to earlier, but would be approved with the approval of the consent agenda, is to revise the consideration of Lake Drive Corporation exceptions request to allow 7-foot chain link fences on unimproved property and the light industrial 1 zone, and to set a public hearing for February 20th. This is 98 days from when it was first considered. So staff recommends approval of the consent agenda as submitted, and a motion would be in order.
So moved.
Is there a motion? Is there a second? Motion and a second. Discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now we will move into the next agenda item, which is the general work session for the fiscal year 1920 and plan year 2021 budget guidance work session. everyone's ready, you're gonna.
Emily's gonna, kick us off with a brief PowerPoint, but during the PowerPoint, gonna be some, specifics from various department heads on some staffing issues that we'd like to talk to the board about. Some are just general, there is one from the fire department that is, getting a feel from the board on an increased level of service, and I'll, defer to the chief when it gets time for that. But Beth, do you wanna get started?
This is, basically, I'm gonna start out with an overview of some of the highlights of the budgets, because I think we've got at least one new board member, and I see a couple others that weren't, that y'all came in on the plan year. So this is the valuation, from last January. Obviously, this will change. This gives you an idea of what the town's real property valuations, the $2,058,000,000. 1 cent generates $205,822. That's townwide. The MSD, which this is the budget coming up, is the 5th year of the MSD tax. That valuation's $154 million, which generates 1 cent generates 15,000. So that tax rate's currently at 33 cents. This just gives you a general idea of what the town's general fund expenditures consist of. Being general government is about less than a third. Public safety is equivalent to general government. This just shows you how the town spends the general fund expenditures and for what purpose.
How the pie slice.
That's how the pie is sliced. So the general fund revenue, again, ad valorem tax is about half of your general fund revenues. The sales, the occupancy, and the land transfer, which is another large segment of revenue to the town. It shows you that's more than a third. Other taxes, the restricted or the grants and that type of thing. Permits and fees has a little part of the pie, and then everything else. So the revenue sharing formula is very important when you are talking about that red part of the pie, the shared revenue section. And this is strictly based on levies of the local governments and the county in relation to each other. Obviously, you see, this is just the town's share over the last 5 years. It's gone up, it's gone down, it's gone up, it's gone down. So, it is, our share of that revenue is dependent on those, on that formula, and for those types of revenue. And this is kind of how the progression of that revenue has gone over the last 5 years. Where it might be a growth, a total growth to the county in one, either occupancy or land, or sales tax, it may, the growth may be 4%, but our share might end up being 6% of that total growth, if that makes sense. And it may grow, and if our share of the levy goes down, we will get a little bit less of that growth for that year, for the next year. And I'll be happy to answer any questions regarding that. This thing seems to be moving on its own. Okay, so right now, undesignated, while Teresa reported a little bit higher number, I'm giving you the 48.51% number because I'm comparing it to what we're actually, our budget for this year. Our general fund budget's almost $19.9 million. Our unassigned fund balance is 9.6, so theoretically it's 48.15 if we spend all of the money in our budget this time. I don't know how to slow this down, but we might need to start slowing it down. I guess it's going on its own.
I'm doing it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, speeding us along. Okay, so this is one of the items that we will need guidance on because it's a big one. I've got several numbers there for COLAs. We use the Consumer Price Index We also we look at year to year what Social Security gives their beneficiaries. So the Consumer Price Index back in June was 2.9. Social Security normally looks, I think, at the July Consumer Price Index and goes with that. The most recent information that I have from November last year to November this year is 2.2. So Social Security being 2.8, use that figure just to give you a general idea of what that would cost the general fund and the water fund for the budget, which is, you see, 164 and 22,000 at 2.8. So that's one of those items that it would be beneficial to know where you were spearheading, looking for to do a cost of living increase for employees. Okay, now I'm gonna really slow down. All right, now these are some new positions as Debbie alluded to earlier. First one is the fire personnel. I don't know if you want to go take it from there for the fire
If it's okay
personnel?
with the board, we'd like to address, if we could address these as we get to them. So if we could go back to the COLA,
Okay.
just briefly. And basically what we're asking for is a consensus. It doesn't mean that when I present you the budget in May and you go through the budget that this is what you're gonna do, but it helps us have a general idea that that's the case. And that would be the COLA. So you're basically looking at three numbers there. The 2.8 is what we calculated the numbers on that you're seeing. And if that would be the consensus of the board, that we use that 2.8 for the cost of living for the employees, then that's what we do.
What guidance does the board want to give for that?
I would agree with the finance department that the 2.8 looks like a relatively safe number. It went to 2.9, I mean, it's negligible compared to if you went with 2.2 and then you'd be jumping up about a third, so personally, I think the 2.8 looks like a reasonable
I agree.
amount to go with.
Okay.
Okay.
That's good.
Now you put the chief on.
Now we're gonna go forward.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. 3 years ago, I put together a staffing plan that would carry the fire department 10-plus years into the future, depending on different items. Back in 2016, we implemented the first part of that staffing plan, which was to create monies, create a fund that will supplement career staff to come back to calls for emergencies that we have within town, structure fires, or if a fire company gets tied up on scene too long, we don't want to leave that station empty for that next call that comes out. So we implemented that in 2016. The second part to the staffing plan was to create a two-person squad or a quick response vehicle that will respond to minor emergencies within our town, patient assist, falls, cuts, sick person, and patient assist. And also to cover for simultaneous alarms that we have occasionally within the town. Of course, this two-person squad will also be able to assist with structure fires also. The first crew would go out, that two-person crew would be the engine or the truck out on the front apron and wait for two additional people to come in, either volunteer or career staff to come back. And then it would go to get us 2 units at least en route quickly. The last phase, which is 10-plus years down the road, is an additional full company, another fire company for the town. There's going to be a little bit more cost associated with that because our current station will not accommodate a whole crew. So there had to be modifications for an additional station put into place. So you might be thinking, what is driving that, Chief? What's pushing those different phases of the staffing plan? Do we have that?
What's that?
The emergency responses.
No, I don't have a slide.
Okay, gotcha. So what's pushing the staffing plan? It's emergency responses. We're having an increased number of responses over the last 9 years. This year we hit our highest point since we've been keeping record with 1,653 responses over this calendar year. We've had quite a few simultaneous calls. While our fire crew was out taking care of an incident, there's another one that hit somewhere in the town. At that point, that crew has to either call in a crew of volunteers to come in, which you can imagine how long that takes for the dispatch to alert everybody with their pagers, get to the station, get the fire engine, and then go to the scene. Sometimes 8 to 10 minutes just to get en route. Or they have to decide, can we clear up quickly enough to go take care of that? So there's a lot of decisions that have to be made quick. The complexity of some of these calls. We have these mega homes that, you know, if they have a fire alarm, it takes quite a bit to get there and take care of the situation. It could be a system malfunction, or it could be just somebody burned some food. Sometimes it takes a while. We have a new hotel that's going up at the south end of town that is going to have 150 plus rooms. When the fire crew goes there, they're at our south point of there, leaving the whole north part of our town vulnerable. Everything's an emergency now. You know, everybody has cell phones. They see somebody laying on the side of the road taking a nap, someone's calling 911, and we have to send somebody out there to check on them to make sure they're okay. We have a population increase, I believe, here in the town of Kill Hills. We have a lot of construction going on, and with those with those houses that are going on, it's more people. That's more calls that we're going to have to take care of. So our population is maturing, needing more care. Falls, patient assist, going up and down the stairs. We do all that kind of stuff. And of course, we all know about our seasonal increases that we have with the summertime. Associated with that is our volunteer commitment. We have a great number of volunteers at this time. But that's a fluid number, and it's a national crisis out there with the volunteers. People are having to deal with family life, careers, and a lot of people don't have time to volunteer anymore. We're fortunate right now that we do that, but that moves up and down. It goes up at points and drops down. Our volunteer workforce is also maturing. They're getting a lot older. So just some of the things that are in the process of us trying to move forward with the next level of our staffing plan. We do a lot of community risk reduction or fire prevention out there in the community, trying to prevent an accident before it occurs. And this crew would help out with that situation also. Any questions?
I feel like I'm using my new position.
Not at all.
I first of all enjoyed my little tour the other day and our discussion at the facilities. I've not been in probably 20, 25 years. That was interesting. A couple quick questions. Entry-level firefighter 1. Can you describe that just a little bit? I mean, how much, at that point, have they had any training or knowledge, or are they just beginning their training?
No, sir. We require them to have all their firefighter certifications when they start day one with us. So they come in, we got to give them what we expect out of them and everything. But they have the full certifications, all the training necessary to come in and be a firefighter.
Okay, thank you. The only other question is, it says the average cost per position is $72. About what portion of that would you say was salary and what portion was benefits?
So
do you have any idea?
38 to 39,000 for the firefighter position.
Yeah, and some of those benefits include health insurance, the retirement, but a big chunk is the health insurance, because we don't know if they have family coverage, individual, so it may not be that much. But we budget for the highest number, and it may end up being actually less. And we use that entry level as a starting point, just to put a number up there so you know how much it's gonna cost.
I know you've got to entice probably new positions, especially as expensive it is to live here. But that's interesting, because I would have thought the salary portion would have been more than 40 or whatever 42, whatever you're saying, so it's.
It's about 42. Yeah, it's around 40.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
you also have another one behind this, which is, you can advance it if you want to, your ocean rescue group leader.
Our Ocean Rescue Division is also requesting another group leader. Currently, we have 21 stands out there on the beach. We have it currently divided into 4 areas. The 4 group leaders are currently supervising, overseeing 5 stands. They want to reduce that span of control by 1. So we'll have 5, they're requesting an additional group leader, so we'll have 5. And 1 group leader will oversee 4 stands out on the beach. And they'll also be there for when we have to deploy a watercraft for the sound or the ocean to assist with all that also, and maintain coverage. Once we go on one rescue, doesn't mean we stop and just focus on that. We still have everything else to cover simultaneously while we're out there.
When is the, I guess the season that the group leaders would be hired and trained by? When do they start, when do they end for in the fall?
Group leaders come in 5 days before we bring the rest of the guards in for training. And it's drawn out, and sometimes it's not all day because we have high schoolers that come in also, so it can be in the evenings also. It's usually 3 weeks prior to Memorial Day that the first group of guards start coming in for their training. And that goes through, the group leaders will stay on the beach until October 15th. We still have a population out there. All the guards, we pull the stands on Labor Day, and then the 4-wheelers stay out there till October 15th.
Well, you said something earlier about calling in 2 people. If there's a need, if there's somebody's out on a call and you need more people, could you explain that again?
Ocean rescue or?
No, I'm sorry, my fire.
Okay, we have a crew that's at the station 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They're handling that first response out the door for anything. If we happen to catch a structure fire, that crew's already going. This second crew, this quick response vehicle, will have 2 people on it. We want 4 people on the crew, so they'll get that truck ready. And as soon as I get 2 volunteers or 2 paid staff coming back, we'll get that fire truck out the door quickly and get 2 companies on scene as quickly as possible.
Are you saying 2 paid staff that are not on that shift necessarily?
Or volunteer.
Right, yeah, okay, I got it.
But the two are of the 7, correct? Yeah, that's right.
Yes, sir.
2 of them are the 7.
So it'll be 2 on each
Five-man
shift.
crew and then two additional people. Yeah.
Will the 2-person crew drive a traditional fire truck or use a different type of vehicle?
No, sir, it'll be a pickup truck, small vehicle, which will also help on the wear and tear of that $500,000 fire truck. Going out for
That takes
patient
about all
assistance,
the
whatever.
fire alarms for commercial buildings,
That'll be a fire truck goes to that.
really, everyone.
Well, that 4-person crew will go on those fire alarms. We don't know what we're gonna get when we get there. It could be a false alarm, but it could be a fire. So we have to be prepared.
Watch out.
But perhaps if you went to have a medical call, you would send the 2? Or
Well,
would they? Or they
or a minor emergency call, then we go on that. Someone who trips and falls,
Yeah.
a sprain, cut, sick,
Makes a lot of
fall,
sense.
just basic stuff. Will we go on right now?
Yeah.
On all those calls.
I know for a lot of people with medical conditions and all the houses being raised, would this 2-person crew be somebody that can respond, just helping somebody get downstairs?
Yes, sir.
That's
Exactly.
huge.
That's one of our patient assists.
Growing demand in our town, so, great.
We have a lot of people that have to go on medical, just doctor's appointments, and they can't get down the steps. And they'll call 911, and we'll go over there with, Dare County EMS and assist them with a stair chair.
Yeah, they did that for my wife after her knee surgery. Very helpful.
Yes, sir.
Makes a lot of sense there, to do that.
The reason for this discussion this evening, see the bottom, the total cost. That's the major part of the total cost. We haven't included the equipment for staff, on that truck, we haven't included the truck. It's kind of those are kind of the weeds, so to speak. Remember Beverly told you that a penny, generates almost $206,000. Yes, 5,822. So this would be a tax increase. This is an increase in service. We do not have the funds to cover this. So it would, that would be direction that we would need this evening, that if you're wanting to consider this in the budget year or the plan year, we would have to show a tax increase.
And you're looking at, because this is without anything else, also that we've had some wish lists, you're looking at least a 3-cent tax increase, is some quick math.
Would this be something that would be willing to be phased in over 2 years?
You really can't phase this, but because you gotta have 2 people 24/7. You need that floater to allow for time off. It's kinda all or nothing. We talked about that, Sean and I met with Beverly and the chief, how can we phase this, how can we look at doing this, without, $500,000 all at once, and you can't. But I think we all can see the need and why it makes sense.
What do you guys think? What are your thoughts?
I like to get through the whole presentation before we make.
And keep in mind that this is something that can be put in the plan year, it's something that you can give direction that you want it
Do a
whenever.
presentation with it and without it, I mean,
Yeah.
Right. But sure, we can go through,
It's hard to make a decision without seeing,
Seeing everything else.
right,
Very close.
you're right, absolutely.
Needs to be considered, I think.
thank you, chief.
Thank you.
I think there's still some other positions that are being requested. There you go, the Planning and Public Services GIS Technician. And Meredith, I guess you'll speak to that one. Yes. Thank you.
This position would be to develop programming and operations for a town geographical information system. Currently, that function is done by the county, and the town has no specialized maps or cannot make requests for specific maps to help us out. The position would fully design a town GIS mapping program and in the future maintain and expand the system. Some of the long-term projects that could be done are mapping of all the streets, sidewalks, structures, water lines, water valves, hydrants, street signs, stormwater infrastructure, flood maps, town easements, and other planning maps. Some information would be available from the county. We have some information that Public Service Department already has, but it's in a different format. It would have to be converted and reprogrammed into a GIS system. And we could use some of the county's base data, but we would need to update it for the town of Kettle Hills. Some shorter projects that would be the responsibility of this position would be pre- and post-storm recovery and mapping, mapping damages, house damage, beach damage, road damage, street damage, doing a pre- and post-storm map, flood map analysis. And there is a tremendous amount of CRS mapping that is, they want the town to do, and a lot of it we do not currently do because we do not have the ability to do those maps. The county does one of the mapping programs for CRS, and beyond that, we do not do that, including repetitive loss, a repetitive loss inventory and mapping system. There are a few, that's just a few functions of a GIS position, and many more will be developed and discovered. I've worked with Steve Albright, and we have agreed to split the position, being 50% to the planning department, 25% to the public services department, and 25% to the water department. The proposed grade would be a 9 with a starting salary of $45,586 under the current budget. Benefits including numbers from finance is about $80,302.24. And this is next year or a plan year, either one planning and public services would be thrilled with either, so thank you for your consideration. Any questions about the,
You said this was a grade 9?
yes?
I had you at a grade 12, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it says 12,
It
grade
is-
9.
I thought it was a grade 12.
No, it's not. It's a, I mean, unless I read the thing wrong, it's a 9 if it's on the same level that we talked about.
But we get the jest for the salary, the
Yeah.
salary's right.
Yes.
We'll figure the grade.
Yeah, I know.
Mayor, I got a quick question.
It's a 9.
Okay.
According to your paper.
Really?
Right now, we're just using the Dare County GIS system, is that true?
Correct. And for example, we're working on our new flood maps. And we have begged, borrowed, and stealed for the county to create some maps for me to be able to present to you at a later date regarding first floor elevations. That is a database that's out there at the state level, but we don't have anybody in-house that can integrate that into a GIS system. So we can't provide you with the information that we think is gonna be helpful for you to make good decisions regarding our new flood map and the fact that we are looking at a local elevation standard, what that local elevation standard will mean to majority of our houses in town. Greg Ball has been amazing at doing some phenomenal maps, not just for our town, but for all of them, because the mapping, we're in this together. But this type of function, we need to be able, we've gotten to the point that we're big enough and we have enough need to have this, a specialist on staff that can create these maps and maintain them. We've created a lot of pretty maps, but the maintenance of those takes a professional and a dedicated employee to that specific task, because it's not a quick programming database.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'm almost done.
We could take just a minute. Steve, I know you don't have a slide, but I think you had a couple of things that you wanted to bring.
Yeah, we, on the public services side, the water staffing, feel pretty comfortable that we've got adequate. Back at Public Works, we've had a couple lengthy, medical absentees, and, particularly on the sanitation side, we've got a supervisor that's maybe spending 60% of his time on a truck. And so we only have 6, equipment operators. We run one roll-off truck, carries everything that goes to Recycle Center, all the C&D, the recyclables to market, everything out of the center. So that's one full-time position. And then with all the growth on the beach road with the large houses that utilize dumpsters and the commercial growth, we're running really a need for 3 commercial trucks. And then we run 4 residential trucks on our peak days. So realistically, Lynn is filling in to cover on those days. So it's, we're making it, but I feel like we're a little lean there. And as far as the streets go, we have 3 equipment operators there for our 60 miles of streets. And my sense is that the level of service expectations for stormwater and the maintenance continue to escalate. And so those 3 staff take care of all the sign blade replacement, all the mowing, all the string trimming, the ditch mucking. And again, we get a hurricane coming. We got Bill Waterfield and his crew that pitch in to help muck and work with that. But an additional equipment operator for the streets department, there's no lack of trimming, clearing site triangles, and the maintenance that goes on with the street department. Make sense?
Makes a lot of sense to me. I see Steve in the ditch most time with a shovel digging, yeah.
Yeah, Derek as well.
Yep.
See him in the ditch too.
Yep.
Okay, I think we're almost drone drive this home. There you go, these are some of the budget considerations, this is one of the things that I can't change. We've already gotten ourselves into this, more or less, and this is the debt payments that we currently have. And those equipment and vehicle leases are projected on what's been these are lease payments on what's been, we already have currently and what's projected the next couple of years. Public Works Complex, again, it's what we have currently and this new one that we're closing on tomorrow. And Beach Nourishment, we're in year 3, so we've got 2 more years to pay. And this is the debt payment for those. All right, and here's some of the reserve fund balances, and this is the most recent, 12/31. As you can see, there's some money, a little bit of money in the streets, capital reserve fund, sidewalk, shoreline accesses. The biggest one is the beach nourishment, and that's those 2 years to pay for the beach debt. That's where most of that's coming from. We've taxed in advance, and then we set aside in a fund. Taxed in advance of the project, let's say. Is there another one? Okay. And these are some of the levels of funding for those capital reserves. And what we did this past year in the streets is $775. We may amend up and down to get a project done, but this is what we funded in the budget. Sidewalks was $100,000, and I believe that shoreline accesses has not been funded last year, but it is one of those annual appropriations to the capital reserve fund. Beach nourishment, that's kind of holding its own, and recreation, there's no recommended funding at this time for that.
2 quick questions. One, beach nourishment, you say in 2 years will be paid up, but will we not have to get started over basically to, if I'm not mistaken, we've got to get it renourished in every 5 years, and that, I think that's the plan.
Well, the debt cycle for the beach is 5 years, and I think that approximates the life cycle of the beach project as well. And we haven't met or anything, but there is talk amongst the finance folks of getting together for the next one, for the renourishment.
Hopefully that won't be as much as the initial nourishment, I would hope and guess.
I don't know.
Obviously, we would all hope, for us with the first one, being able to do the joint project and saving the money on the mobilization, really helped, and that's what we would all hope for the renourishment. But we will be revisiting what that MSD tax needs to be as we get closer to that 5-year period.
And just for this upcoming budget, that is in that window of that beach tax. The plan year is when you're really gonna need to decide where to take that tax to.
Just trying to look down the road a little bit and
Yeah,
see what
the
we're.
plan year is when you're gonna need to
think
make
that
those.
my other question is the sidewalks, which I was a big proponent of to start with. If I'm not mistaken, we're getting fairly close on the sidewalks, aren't we?
There's a little bit on the north end, east side, and then
The big one this year.
from, the landing south to Collington on the west side, the Park Service property.
So you think at some point that will be scaled back some? I mean, I would,
We also have a pedestrian plan, which has very specific sidewalk recommendations that go inside
west.
east-west. Priorities were, I think, First Street, Third Street, were 2 big ones. Hayman was one of them. But it has a specific, priority list also that goes beyond US 158. And I can't help but plug that we also really need to look at sidewalks on NC 12, at least one side of that road. It's a very highly pedestrian and multimodal friendly road. There are some extended shoulders, but walkers and strollers and bikes don't always work well together. And a lot of people walk to their beach accesses from across the street, so it's something that the board may want to put in their hat for use for that funding in the future.
How wide is that right away there? Beach.
Steve, I don't know.
It's 60.
I think it's 62.
Just looking for a little relief somewhere, we can find it, I guess it's.
And there's one other thing there, there's no money, slated for recreation, but I've been working with Mary here recently. We've had a lot of, citizen input about, upgrading some, parks and neighborhood parks and so forth. And we've actually got some that are coming up, slated to be upgraded. But I've been working with Mary on that, and, we'll be coming forward to, with some sort of packet to get to the board as far as, what some of the thoughts are on that. So there might be some suggestions in there that are already in the works as far as upgrades to some of our neighborhood parks.
And if I may explain, this is the capital reserve funding. This doesn't mean that we haven't been doing recreation, nor does it mean that we wouldn't
Right,
have a
right.
specific project that would be in the budget.
That's right.
The multimodal and the park stuff, I think those also are right for grants also. Not just maybe from the tourist bureau, but other places. We've gotten them from us, right?
Bay Drive was a combination of several grants.
And I think that's one thing, again, as we consider how we wanna prioritize what we want to address and tackle, because, we threw out possible tourism board for the toilets, but what's your priority? Because they're not gonna give us, typically, they don't fund more than one project in the same cycle. So it's just something to think about when you're starting to prioritize, when making decisions of where you want to ask for the dollars to be directed.
And the difference between the capital reserve funds and your operating funds is this money, what's not used, rolls back into the fund. Operating money, what's not used, rolls back into fund balance and gets reappropriated wherever in the next year. But this money stays in a reserve, and it's for a specific purpose. And it's for the purpose that the reserve fund was created for. So that's kind of the difference in the capital reserve funds versus the operating fund.
One thing I noticed earlier on, it looked like the occupancy tax we received had really gone down in the last year, which kind of surprised me.
Well, you know what, I did get some data on the occupancy tax. For the fiscal year 17-18, total growth to the, from the county, from the county side, was 5.2%. And of course, 1% goes to the county, 2% goes to beach nourishment, and then the 3% goes to the towns to get divided up. So where it's a 5.2 total growth, the town got 9% last fiscal year, because the year prior, our share was 29% this past prior fiscal year, whereas the year before it was only 27.99. So there's the difference that I was trying to explain. It's kind of simply complicated, but that's kind of what I was trying to explain. Whereas this year, I think Nags Head had a tax increase last year. I'm not sure, maybe the county did too. But anyway, so this year to date, from July to, I've got data through November because it comes, a month or two behind. Total growth is only 0.4% countywide. Kettle Hills share is less than 4%. It's 4% less year to date this year than it was year to date last year. And our percentage went from 29 to 27.76. So that's how it works.
So does that follow anytime another town does a tax increase and ad valorem tax increase, the next year we're gonna have a lower share if we didn't raise taxes, which is also, it factors into this, we call it kind of gaming, watching what other towns do, because if they go up and we stay the same, the next year, we are going to get a hit, because they're gonna get more of that revenue sharing, which is exactly what just happened with.
The only way to avoid it is for our assessed values to go up. So,
It should be going up right now, right? I mean,
well, they do go up a little bit each year, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, I know I can't predict, because I won't know until all the, what do you call it, listing forms come back. We don't even have this year's, valuations to give you yet, because tax listing forms, I gave you information from last year, but it's about $2 billion or so. If we grow, you know, if people build, it does tend to increase. Properties, we don't really have, not annex or anything, but we've got a new development coming on board. So it's probably gonna increase some.
But it takes time, it's like with the hotel, you know, that's gonna help, but it's got to be completed and on the tax listing.
So it does. Any other questions?
Just, is our tax collection rate still up around 98 or 99%?
That I'm not prepared to answer, but I would probably
It's
say,
done by the county.
yeah, it's
there's
coming
a-
in. We've got one more month of heavy, you know, collections. Usually, December and January are the biggest months of tax collections.
We haven't seen any decrease.
No.
Can't give you the number for this.
County,
Historically, it's been pretty high.
Yes.
yes, the counties does an excellent job. Yes, it's higher, very high. And that information is in your CAFR.
You're easy to read.
Award winning.
It's an easily readable document. It is a lot of good information, especially in the back, the statistical section.
Okay, questions for staff? So, really what we need to try to do tonight is provide some general guidance. So they can prepare some budgets for us to look at. However you wanna slice it up, I mean, if you look at the specific position request or not, I think really the biggest thing to take a stab at is, are you comfortable with a tax increase, and if so, to what amount? Because then that's gonna provide the initial guidance for staff to start working on, because if you come out and the board's not gonna support a tax increase, well, that quickly says none of the things proposed are we gonna be able to do. Or are you comfortable with that?
I think, the public safety stuff, I think, should take priority. Doesn't mean the whole thing. I think that's one thing that we should look at and, do the best we can there. And then with the other stuff, like the GIS person, I talked to Meredith about that today, about the importance of that. And I said, well, who's doing it now? And she said, nobody, because we don't have anybody to do it. Yeah. So, those are the two main things to me, the lifeguard and the fire department. Somebody for which that person would be split up, or she said the GIS person would be split up.
I have a question, and this may or may not pertain to this situation, but doing my tour the other day, I went through a few departments that seemed in dire need of a place to store records or other things. Do we have any plan for that currently?
We have a record storage, building here in this parking lot, and Mary also follows the, record retention. Those departments need to get up to the town clerk, and she'll be happy to help them with where they may need to store the records. I've not been made of any issues with people not having storage for records. Have you? I'd be happy to look into that.
There are actually two records facilities that are used. One is down at the public services area, public works area for the police department, and then the small building right out here. The clerk's office has taken a back step for police records. They have very extenuating and stringent records retention requirements depending on the type of case and the type of record that it is. But the general record storage and disposition that goes out of our building, which includes administration, planning, public services, finance, and fire, probably gets cycled about twice a year. So we bring stuff in, and stuff that is able to be sent out for destruction, which follows the town's adopted records retention and disposition schedule, which is developed by the State of North Carolina Archives and History Division and approved by the board, and then the list is cycled through the town attorney for his approval. That's when something is able to be sent into the shredding truck. So we typically do a record cycle in the wintertime, and it's that time. In the police department, if what that building down at Public Works is doing is serving as their evidence storage and their record storage. So if there's stuff in the police department that needs to be cycled, that building down there serves as double duty. It's time for us to do the cycling of it now.
I did notice firsthand that it was an issue, so I just wanted to bring it up
Depending
and
on
see if that was part of, if there is any.
If you come through when they're doing the
Right.
cycling, it looks like a disaster area, yes, because you gotta go through all of it stacked up, it has to be gone through, listed.
Planning, for example, is in the process of cleaning out 1 year's worth of commercial site plans and not, say,
Residential.
sorry. And how many drawers would you say that was?
2014 was either 4 or 5.
drawers, maybe 20 boxes?
No, we did that when we redid our file room, and we probably sent at least 20 boxes down to record retention.
I think you'd be really surprised at the amount of paperwork that gets generated. We're not allowed at this point, due to the court system, to scan everything and have it available as a non-alterable PDF. The courts will still not accept it, so most of our work still has to be done by paper.
It seemed the police department, it was specific needs that they obviously had a lack of right at the moment anyway, so I was just bringing it up while we're at this discussion.
And the planning department does destroy all residential records after 7 years in accordance with the North Carolina Building Code. We do scan as-built surveys, elevation certificates, and several other parts of the file. That's part of the flood program and the CRS, so we do try to cycle out our residential stuff. We're in the Laserfiche process now, catching up a little bit. Commercial plans, we keep in perpetuity.
Let me get sidetracked, I just came to mind.
And I agree with, what Mike was saying, that you're talking about, some of these additional personnel and stuff, that when you go to public safety, then that's where you tend to put your highest priority. But at the same time, we have, specifics as far as specific departments, like Public Works, for example. These guys are getting more and more duties all the time as far as, cleaning out the stormwater drains and stuff like that. I would prefer not to say whether I'm a proponent of a tax increase or a tax decrease, but I would rather say I'd like to look at the needs that the town has and then make a decision after looking at the overall picture, like some of the other board members have said. But, you know, we've got needs all in town. I know that, Steve, you guys are strapped pretty much, as far as taking care of some of the storm drainage and back in Public Works. So, You know, from my observations, I'd rather look at the whole picture and see what the needs are and then try to make a decision based on that. Does that make sense?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out how do we provide that as guidance? I mean, am I interpreting that to say you want, I mean, the staff told us what they thought their needs were. Are we saying take
If they
those
see a
needs and
need,
put in a budget?
Put it in there, and then when we go through the budget process, we'll figure out what we can or can't do. And that's what I would do.
Yeah, the way we do this, we have time.
Right.
You know, because we had started in January, so we have time to do that and a good bit of time to look it over.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've been here a while, I trust the staff pretty much.
I
Don't agree with everything, but I'm pretty much agreeable.
Yeah,
If they ask for it, they need it.
they need, I agree.
Okay, I'm just not trying to beat a dead horse, but if we're saying, because I'm not trying to mix words either, if we're saying, and I'm not disagreeing, let's support all what staff has requested because staff needs these positions, that's great. We are definitely then looking, the only way to put that in the budget and have a budget come back to us is also saying there's gonna be an ad valorem tax increase. That doesn't mean we're approving that tonight, but there's no way to tell staff, go put all these positions in, and somehow we're thinking we're not gonna have a tax increase. I'm just calling a spade, make sure we're all on the same
Right,
page.
because the budget that comes from the staff, for me, is my recommended budget. And I don't wanna come to the board recommending 7, 8, 9 new positions if the direction from the board is that you don't wanna add new positions.
I agree with Mike. My inclination is always to follow the staff's recommendations, whether it's the finance department or the planning department, and then kind of look at it, see if there's any way to, that's why I was looking to see, is there any place we see any cost cuts in the future? It doesn't sound like it, but
No, because
You
what
know,
I'm
you
hearing
gotta balance it.
is addition, you know,
right, huh?
bathrooms and other things.
I don't feel like I'm qualified to, for instance, challenge the chief on what he needs.
Right.
You know, I'm not,
The chief
if he says he needs it, he needs it.
The chief is telling you he needs it as far as his staffing plan. He's not telling you that he can't run the fire department without it.
He's trying to be as efficient as he possibly can.
Right.
That's right.
And needs those guys to do that.
More efficiently, yes.
And without a crystal ball, that would probably set us up for a few years.
I think before you go to the next level, you're gonna have to really give some consideration as to whether you're gonna, build a new fire station, towards the southern portion of the town, or you're gonna renovate the one that we currently have, because to go to the next level of staffing, he would need additional, accommodations for his firefighters. You can't put any more people, what I'm trying to say, in that one, aside from the ones we're talking about this evening. So that's a whole nother, discussion.
Right.
And basically what this is, would be staffing half,
A full couple,
right,
Half of what?
Half a company,
have a full crew.
2 and so forth.
I think we've been pretty conservative with our tax increases over the years. I mean, I've always been happy with it. There's a couple of times I even thought we could do a little more, but, if we get in a position like this where it's gonna be a bigger number than it has been for the past 7 years or whatever, I'm not totally happy with that, because we've held the line pretty good, I think.
well, I think you've seen that a lot has been accomplished, you know, just like what was talked about this evening about what's going on at the Dare Center. You know, Bay Drive, the street improvements, and any number of things. And a lot accomplished by the various boards.
And they're not, the capital improvements that have been recently requested, the big items, have not been significant at all. They're actually really very little this year and next. So what we're looking at is as far as positions, are the ongoing cost. But there haven't been, I know that the fire station is one that's several years out, But for the next 2 years, there's very little capital requests, big item, big ticket requests. So, not like we had, like you said, not like we've had.
So I guess we're saying go ahead and put that stuff in there and look at the bottom line.
Okay.
We'll be looking at it soon enough to just make adjustments if we need to.
Do we just need to make an agreement, or do we need a motion, or?
No, just consensus.
Consensus.
Just enough to give them some direction.
I would agree with the other commissioners on that.
Quick question, Chief Tilly, the number on the bottom of, I guess, the big picture request you had, was that 100% personnel, or is it a mix of personnel and equipment?
What's that 507? That's just personnel,
Just personnel,
salary, benefits, and stuff like that. We'll have to get a smaller utility vehicle to carry just some basic equipment. EMS bag, AED, stuff like that.
You okay with it?
Yeah, no, I just make sure, the one thing I don't wanna see happen is we give direction to do all this, and then staff spends a ton of time to prepare a budget, and they come back to us in however many days, 60 days, to present us the budget, and we're all just like, oh, we can't do a tax increase, cause we've asked to do a ton of work, so that was my only caution. I mean, I'm supportive, I'm with you, I think we've gone a couple of years with no tax increase, and I think, it's really hard to put a dollar amount on public safety and saving someone's life, and, in my mind, I'm weighing, okay, we're out on one call, how many times is it that another call comes in? But if that's you or your family member, when that other call comes in, you can't put a price tag on it, so I get it. So I just wanted to make sure we're not going down a road that we don't truly wanna go down, because that's just a lot of, we'll basically be starting, we're asking them to prepare another budget if they come back and we look at those numbers and go, no, we don't wanna do a tax increase, that's all. It's not a disagreement, it's just trying to make sure that we're looking at the reality, it's a lot to swallow, so.
I wouldn't want to be the one to tell somebody or a family that it was because of money.
Okay, but yeah, we'll have other time to look at these numbers and all, this was just to give the big picture guidance. Alright, thank you. Anything else? We do have one other time set aside for public comment. Is anyone who wishes to speak at this public comment time? No takers? Anything else from the board? With that, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Is there a second? Sure, ready to go. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
This thing.
Any opposed? Alright, thank you.